Hello, this is Motion Recap. Today, I'm going to explain Badland, Road to Fury, an action science fiction film. There will be spoilers ahead. Keep an eye out and be mindful. We observe a wide barren land at the start of the film. Jerome Home, a young man, tells us that he hasn't seen this area when it was green, but that his father had. It was once home to various farmers who farmed wheat and grains on the land. However, no plant has been able to grow since the region was stricken by drought. The majority of the farmers had fled, but Ernest, Jerome's father, thought that the land would become green again. He still thinks it's just a matter of adding some water. People, on the other hand, kill each other for water in this world. Two muggers attempt to break into a small residence in the opening scene. Ernest catches them and kills the first. The second mugger tries to persuade him to spare his life, but when he quietly draws a gun, he is killed. Jerome, his son, claims he could have aided him. When Ernest tries to utilize the old water pump in the house the muggers were breaking into, it stops working. With no more water, the father and kid take a mule to the watermen, people who use a government arrangement to harvest water from deep wells. Ernest trades supplies for water with those individuals. For years, he has tried to persuade them to give him with water so that he can develop a little portion of his property. The watermen, on the other hand, only do it for the suitable amount of money, which Ernest does not have. Their mule falls down and fractures its leg on the way back. Ernest kills the animal with reluctance. When the two return home, Mary, Jerome's sister, serves them bag food. We witness Mary washing the dishes with soil due to a lack of water. The next day, Jerome and Ernest go to Sam Lover's auction shop in search of a replacement for the deceased mule. Then Simulate Shadow, Sim, a robotic carrier machine, attracts their attention there. Ernest defeats Flem Lover, who also happens to be Sam's son, in the auction. Ernest and Jerome are unaware that Flem is having an affair with Mary. The two then travel to see Catherine Home, Jerome's ailing mother. She is housed in a nearby hospital and is able to walk with the assistance of a special frame. They can't bring her home since the frame is too pricey. That day, Jerome spends time with his mother. Ernest and Catherine kisses and part ways. Ernest and Jerome stop at a petrol station on their way back. After pouring gas into his car, we witness Ernest take a swallow of it. They come upon a couple with a small child who is begging for water. Robbie, the father, wants to sell the baby because they can't afford to care for him, but Ernest warns him against it and offers to help with water. Robbie is aware of Flem and Mary's affair and informs Ernest. At home, Ernest confronts Mary about her sneaking out frequently, but she claims that it is her freedom and tells her father that she hates him. She tries running away, but Ernest locks her in her room and nails her windows shut. One morning, Ernest and Jerome wake up to Sim absent from its shed. Someone had stolen it. Ernest assumes it was Flem and goes to his house, but finds out from Sam that he has left with a truck that morning for the mountains. Ernest then goes looking for him to the watermen, but they knock him unconscious. When he regains consciousness, it is already night. The watermen accuse him of stealing their supplies. Ernest insists that he didn't steal them, but their leader, Caleb, attacks him. They fight for a while, but Ernest eventually gets his hands on his rifle and flees. He catches Flem sleeping on the road with Sim by his side on his way home, and it is evident that he had stolen the machine and the watermen's supplies. Ernest keeps him prisoner with the rifle and then ties him to the machine. He intends to return Flem to the watermen in order to establish his innocence. Flem makes remarks about Mary on the way, which enrage Ernest. Both of them become thirsty after a short walk. Flem persuades Ernest to use the water from the watermen's supply. The two sit down to drink water and chat. Flem then tries to convince Ernest to let him go, and they can share the money, but Ernest is adamant about getting him caught. Ernest is weak and limp. He clearly cannot walk another mile to the watermen. Flem knows this, so he strikes Ernest with a stone, making him hit his head on a cliff. His head starts to bleed uncontrollably and is knocked unconscious. Ernest wakes up to him being tied instead of Flem. Flem pours water into Ernest's mouth as he screams. Later, we see Flem arrive at Ernest's house in his motorbike to take Mary. She runs out to him with joy. Ernest hasn't returned home yet, so Jerome sets out to find him. On the way, he comes upon the machine by himself. The watermen warn him of Ernest's death when he arrives. Everyone assumes that the machine is to blame. Everyone is mourning Ernest's death during his burial in the next scene. Catherine and her children later sob in her hospital bed. When they come out, Flem picks them up in his truck. After Ernest's death, Flem has taken over as the family's mentor. As he punishes Sim for killing his father, he calms Jerem down. He later informs him that Mary is expecting his child and that he adores her. Jerem acknowledges their connection. Later that day, Flem meets with the watermen to discuss providing water to Ernest's property. Caleb laughs at his proposal, but becomes enraged when Flem accuses him of being responsible for Ernest's death. Flem also shows him a knife that was discovered alongside Ernest's body and bears Caleb's name. Caleb agrees to divert water to their crop because he is afraid of being blamed. When the land receives its first sprinkling of water, everyone is overjoyed. Flem works 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to cultivate wheat on his farm. They are fully matured after a few months. Flem marries Mary and now lives with Jerem and Mary in Ernest's house. One day, his father, Sam, with some men from the bank approaches their house, threatening to take the land because of Ernest's debt. The debt is too much for Flem to pay, so he takes the machine with him and approaches his friend Robbie that night. He knows about Robbie's intention to sell his child, so he persuades Robbie to come with him just to see how much a baby can be worth. However, when they reach there, Robbie realizes that Flem has secretly made a deal with the people to sell this baby. The people try to take the baby away. Robbie resists it and is shot dead by Flem. This causes a shootout between the dealers and Flem runs away with the money. However, the machine, Sim, is shot and damaged. This activates the auto mode in the machine, which causes it to return back to its manufacturer, Calvin Hooman. The following day, Flem pays the bank from the money he sold the child with. Jerem assumes that the money came by selling Sim, so no one suspects anything. In the following scene, we see Sim limping its way back to Calvin, who lives across the border. Calvin calls the number inscribed on Sim and reaches Hohn's residence. He talks to Jerem about the machine coming back to him, which shocks Jerem because Flem had told him he sold it to Robbie. Jerem asks Flem if Robbie sold Sim's parts and it's somehow made to the owner, but Flem gets annoyed at him for the question and dismisses it. Then he tells them he is going to meet his mother that evening, but instead he plans to cross the border to meet Calvin, the manufacturer of Sim. Later he reaches the border, but the guard stops him because he is too young to cross it. A girl named Anna calls him over and tells him she knows a way he can go to the other side. In exchange for money, she puts him in a vehicle with chickens and sends him over. They meet again at the other side and separate. Jerem then goes to meet Calvin. There, Calvin shows him all the functions of the machine. He also shows that the machine's eyes are cameras that were made to capture the slope for reforestation. The camera has captured all that the machine has seen. Jerem plays the recordings and sees his time with Ernest. As he goes through it, he is horrified to see that Flem was the one who killed Ernest. That day, after Ernest had gained consciousness, Flem tied him to the machine and set its destination to the watermen. The machine had dragged an injured but alive Ernest to his death. By the end of the video, tears roll down Jerem's eyes. In the evening, he returns home but doesn't confront Flem about anything. One day, Flem and Jerem are hunting deers, after which Jerem keeps the rifle with him, hiding it under his bed for the future. At breakfast, Jerem tells Flem about Robbie calling him. Flem is caught off guard and accuses Jerem of lying because he already knows Robbie is dead. Later, Flem receives a letter addressed to him from Jerem, who is posing as Robbie. The letter instructs Flem to meet Robbie at the exact location where Ernest was murdered. This perplexes him, so he tries to find out if Robbie is still alive. Flem tells a pregnant Mary later that he has to go out and sell something. Mary wishes him well and invites him to return soon. When Flem arrives at the location, he summons Robbie. He slips down a pit and breaks his legs as he walks. When Jerem appears in front of him, he is crying for aid. Flem breathes a sigh of relief as he sees him and pleads for his assistance. Jerem, on the other hand, is standing there with a rock in his hand. Flem realizes he is aware of all that has occurred and apologizes to him, stating it was an accident. He begs Jerem to spare his life in order to save Mary and their kid, but Jerem refuses. He directs the weapon at Flem and kills him with a single shot. It has been 2 days since the event. Mary is concerned about her husband, but Jerome encourages her to be patient. He has chosen to keep Mary unaware of both Ernest's and Flem's deaths. Because they now have enough money to purchase the ringing system their mother lives in, Mary recommends they bring her home. Jerome erases all of Sim's video memory at the end of the film. To support the channel, subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like. Thank you for taking the time to watch.